I am about to show you why great coaches don't just teach plays, they change lives. Everything I'm talking about today, I went through. And at 3 years old, after being beaten severely by a stepfather and putting in a safe home, and he was incarcerated, only to be given back for an additional 13 years. I am Charles Prinzen, aka Coach Chuck, your locker room coach in this game of life. I'm the CEO and founder of Follow Your Dreams Athletics. And my CEO does not stand for Chief Executive Officer. My CEO stands for Courage, Educating Others. That being said, good coaches coach X's and O's, great coaches coach life. And sometimes when coaches coach, they're all over the place. They get their clipboard, they get their chalkboard, they get their dry erase board, they're all over the place. However, sometimes, and I've been taking notes for days now, they don't work because that was the then. Let's talk about the now. So I appreciate this opportunity. And Tamara, you know how I feel about you and Chemo Buddies for Life. Yes, I will mention that because nobody, just like today, nobody's going to get left behind if they take notes, reach back to those speakers that are passing out those nuggets. So here we go. Have you ever heard you sound just like your mother or you act just like your father? Are you a carbon copy or a spitting image of those that came before you, the generation before you? What about the generation before them or the generation before them? How far back? So I'm going to give you a breakdown in Coach Chuck's analogy. And we're going to talk about offense, defense, okay? Offense, traits of the environment that you live in are positive. Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, Halloween, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy. If you're in that environment growing up as a child, chances are you're going to survive and become very successful. On the defensive side, and that's where I came from. I'm not gonna third party anything. Everything I'm talking about today, I went through. And at 3 years old, after being beaten severely by a stepfather and putting in a safe home, and he was incarcerated, only to be given back for an additional 13 years of ugly until I ran away at 16 and got adopted by a widow Japanese lady. And that started a change in my life. It got me out of that negative environment, okay? Because our youth are victims of the environment that they live in. So I talked about the offense. I talked about the Christmas and Thanksgiving, all the positive traits in a loving family, a family that communicates, a family that shares, a family that loves and cares about each other. Now let's talk about the other side. The environment in a defensive, child abuse, domestic violence, alcohol, drugs, incarceration, abandonment, dysfunctional families, not knowing families before you because of the generational cycles of not having families in people's life, moms, dads, sisters, brothers, whatever, being separated. Well, what happens when you have those defense and you're in that defensive mechanism? Those defensive barriers go up. You surround yourself to protect. Well, at 26 years old, I became a monster. And I'll tell you how. When I went into that defensive mode, I went so deep into the mind. It was dark, it was cold, and I liked it because I wouldn't let nothing in. However, I held a lot in. I saw my mother stabbed and beaten for 20-something years until she passed away on Mother's Day, 1979, from 22 years of domestic violence. But she kept going back. We could talk about that at another time. So, and my mom's nickname was Bunny. Figure that one out. My stepdad was very abusive. He almost killed me twice, strangulation and drowning. Again, I was so deep in that mind, I would not let anything in. For years, I just accepted it. I took the beatings. I handled it. And nothing was left behind when it came to what was put on my body by my stepdad. Nothing. So those defensive mechanisms that we build, just like the positive ones, the defensive ones protect us. We keep things inside. We keep that toxic poison inside of us because we don't want to let anybody know. We are just locked down. Well, here's the problem. Because I was in that mind from 3 years old to 16 when I ran away, And then life started taking its own way as I got older into my 20s and my 30s. I had no idea that those traits, yes, traits, leeches that attach themselves to you in whatever relationship you are in your family, whether it's a positive or a negative, those leeches will attach themselves to you as they did me. And then one day, a 6-year-old stepdaughter triggered my CPTSD. How do I know I have CPTSD? Because one time when I was young, my mother was drunk, like drunk. She kept slapping me across my face and I blacked out. I know what it's like to be on the other side. And when I came to, my mother was at the base of my feet. I had beaten her and I didn't even know it. And my best friend that was spending the night watched me. He also watched me bail out of that house when I ran away to a safe house. So all that time, I'm just keeping this stuff in. And one day, my 6-year-old stepdaughter triggered. I'm not proud of this. I'm just telling you what happens when you live in a negative environment and those leech and traits become attached to you and you just live your life. That's all you know. You don't know any better because that's how you were raised. So you just go about that. I threw my stepdaughter across the room and my fiance came in and I slapped her. And I went, what? No way. There's no way with what I went through in my life. And I only give you bits and pieces of the ugly that I went through that caused me to go deep into the mind. How could I have done this? No way. I watched my mother, I'm telling you, severely beaten by this monster. But I now became that monster when I decided to hit. Pain. And all that pain and trauma that I had in my life came out at one time. Boom, done. I went and seeked help. So if you are acting like somebody in your family ahead of you, the generation before you, like your mom or your dad, okay, or whoever raised you, if it's a positive environment, if it's a negative environment, think about what they have done, what they did to you, and make those changes as I did, because I went to a psychologist, and when he told me that I had traits, I said, can you please break that down for me a little bit more? And he explained to me, your stepdad is coming out in you. What? How's that? All you have to do is be in an environment, positive or negative, for any length of time, and those traits will attach themselves to you. And when they're ready to come out, they will come out. I became aware. That I had issues that I needed to work on that I picked up from my stepdad, which was a victim of the environment that he lived in. That's all he knew. So he passed it on to me. So when you become aware, it's almost like you're not an alcoholic until you go to your first AA meeting, or you're not aware until you go and somebody tells you that you have a negative trait or traits. And if you don't correct them, they're going to continue to pass on to others as it was passed on to you. I became aware. I started to release those poison toxics from within me. Sometimes just talking to the man in the mirror, trying to release all that inside of me. And I made a change. And what I do now is I go into schools and I work with at-risk youth, those that are having to go to school and try to function after a weekend of a runaway or even living in that negative environment, domestic violence, child abuse, sexual abuse, all of that, and holding it in. I help our youth. I even help our parents learn how to break those cycles, move forward, and not only forgive, you're never going to forget, but learn how to feel that warmth and that joy of unconditional love to family, friends, and even, yes, yourself, because I am success. And all I ever want, like I said, is I made a promise that if he would allow me to get old, I would make it right. And I want to thank Golden Speakers Talk, Anshu, for all the hard work behind the scenes that nobody really sees. That lady is amazing. And I want to thank you for the opportunity, and even more so, look how good God is. That my beautiful sister, Tamara, and we've gone down some roads, some journeys together over the last 10 years or so. For her to be the host, things happen for a reason, and I'm grateful.
and every story can change the world. Together we are Global Speakers Talk.